Number 7. P-47 Thunderbolt. Thousands of marine species are found at Raja Ampat in Indonesia, which has the most diversified ecology in the world. The P-47 Thunderbolt wreck Santa Maria has an interesting story too and is located near Raja Ampat. The Pacific theater of World War II was home to the P-47 North American fighter aircraft. The P-47 still has one of the most outstanding combat records in history, despite being overtaken by the much more well-known P-51 Mustang in later phases of the war effort. Sadly, the Santa Maria, flown by Major Harry Orden, didn't survive to see the war's end. On October 21, 1944, Orden took command of a strike group made of 7 P-47 aircraft and directed them to assault Harioke in western New Guinea. The team burned more fuel during the battle than they planned, so they were running low while heading back to base. The pilots quickly realized they would not be able to make it back thanks to their disorientation caused by terrible weather. It was determined that all 7 planes would have to fly through a gap in the clouds and land in the ocean. The squadron was not as fortunate though, since all 7 of the P-47s were lost, even though all the pilots made it through the night and emergency landings. Divers have since discovered 3 of the 7 airplane wrecks, and it's believed that there may be another 10 on the reefs surrounding White Island. The Santa Maria is the most accessible and undamaged of the recovered P-47s at 91 feet below water on a sloping reef. The second wreck is located at 38 meters on the same reef system, but due to its depth, only experienced divers can observe it. The third, though, is fully demolished in just 6 feet of water. Witnessing the Santa Maria is an incredible sight. The fuselage and wings are completely undamaged despite its upside-down position. The wreck has survived due to its depth and location, where it is shielded from stronger currents that frequently happen on White Island's east side. Coral growth and aquatic life have made the ancient warships wreck their home over the 60 years it has been submerged. The wreck has vibrant soft coral growth, and barracuda schools are frequently seen swimming around it. Despite the wreck's small size, it is nonetheless simple to find on White Island's reefs, which are teeming with life and stunning plants. The island is also one of the most scenic in the entire region of Raja Ampat. Number 6. Theodore Weiss's plane wreckage. Theodore T. Weiss left the Marion County Airport on April 5, 2014 at 74 years old on an unusual trip to Zephyrillus. Weiss was never able to reach his target though. His vehicle was still parked at the airfield and his airplane hangar was empty, so friends soon reported him missing. Weiss, an accomplished aviator, regularly flew to New York, where he spent most of the year. As a popular kit plane built in the early 2000s, his aircraft was a modest single-engine Sonex 2-seater. Law enforcement officers of the counties of Citrus, Hernando, Lake, Sumter, Levy, and Marion, as well as representatives from Florida's Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, were among the 135 people who participated in the search for Weiss and his plane. His last known location was above the vast Withlacoochee State Forest, making it challenging for teams to find him. Additionally, there was no emergency signal due to the fact that the switch had not been turned on. The ground search stopped after covering over 20 square miles, and on October 2014, the wreck was finally discovered. It had been 6 months since the crash. A hiker exploring a trail near the Pruitt Trailhead stumbled upon it. The site was only 2 miles away from Weiss's takeoff location. According to media reports, his skeletal remains were found still fastened to his seatbelt. The National Transportation Safety Board released a report 2 years after the disaster, concluding what was an extensive and time-consuming inquiry. In their study, they stated that they were unable to determine the cause of the incident. According to the study, the number 3 cylinder had low compression, which they thought was likely present when the airplane took off. Upon investigation, a hole in the gasoline supply line was found. Despite that, it was impossible to tell if the hole was pre-existing or if it developed after impact due to corrosion. The fuel shutoff had been turned off, which led officials to think the pilot was preparing for a forced landing. The cause of this is unknown based on the available data. The plane wreckage still lies in the woods today. Number 5. the Pegasus. In certain cases, when an airplane crashes and can't be restored because of its position, it is left as a historical monument. In Antarctica, a Lockheed C-121 Constellation that has been abandoned after a crash landing in 1970 is one example of this. The Pegasus had its last flight on October 8, 1970. The aircraft, a member of the U.S. Navy's VX-6 Squadron, originally took off from Christchurch Airport in New Zealand and traveled for nearly 10.5 hours before reaching the Antarctic. There were about 80 individuals on board, including 12 crew members and 68 passengers. The crew was made up of the commander, 2 co-pilots, 2 navigators, 2 flight engineers, a radio operator, as well as 2 loadmasters. As it approached McMurdo Station, the Lockheed C-121 Constellation Connie faced a powerful storm. There was no visibility thanks to snow and ice being tossed around by high winds. The Pegasus couldn't just fly back to its starting point or to another airfield outside of the continent since there wasn't enough fuel. The plane soon collided with the icy ground, leaving the runway barely visible. As all 4 engines were put into reverse, the right main gear was shot into a snowdrift. The plane turned 210 degrees clockwise after hitting the ground, moving backwards down the runway. As a result of the collision, the main landing gear was bent. It was sheared off inside the gear well, right below its pivot point. Over 50 years have passed since. It's remarkable and amazing that all 80 occupants of the airplane survived the crash without suffering any serious injuries. Passengers, many of whom were inadequately clothed, remained inside the wreckage due to the severe winds and bitter temperatures. Despite the crash landing, the aircraft's fire danger was considered low given the cold environment. Because it was in a hard-to-see location, recovery took a bit of time. Visitors to McMurdo Station may still be able to see the crash site today, where the plane is now partially buried in ice. Pegasus Field was given a new name for the site and the ice runway in honor of the crashed aircraft. The extra summer melt forced the field to close down in 2014, so it is no longer used as a runway. At number 4, Beautiful Betsy. A B-24 Liberator aircraft called the Beautiful Betsy went missing on February 26, 1945, while heading to Brisbane, Australia. 6 Americans and 2 British soldiers were on board. The bomber, which had sustained damage during prior combat missions, was only used for brief transportation flights at this point and was slated for retirement. Although the exact cause of the Betsy's accident is unknown, technical failure and bad weather are potential suspects. A number of expeditions were sent out to look for the bomber, but none were successful. And over the years, the lost jet was mostly forgotten. Or at least until it was a park ranger who visited an area of Crumbit Tops National Park in August of 1994 to assess a controlled fire. The ranger noticed something strange shimmering in the sunlight after the fire had cleared the vegetative overgrowth. In the beginning, the location was kept a secret to deter treasure hunters and people from trampling the site before it could be properly researched. To search the wreckage for artifacts and human remains, the U.S. Army dispatched its own specialists. The location, along with the remaining portions of the Beautiful Betsy, was then made accessible to locals and park visitors. Today, the story of the missing bomber is told through markers and trails that lead up to the debris. At number 3, Ekranoplan. On a Russian seashore, a strange vehicle from the Cold War is lying in pieces. The ekranoplan, a plane-boat hybrid that floated on a cushion of air above the water surface, broke free while being towed across the Caspian Sea. It became stuck not far from a nearby shore. The Soviet Union tried to develop the ekranoplan, a craft capable of using the wing-in-ground effect. Air pressure increases between a plane's wing and the flat surface below as it travels near to the ground. As a result, the plane is supported by a cushion of air of sorts. In the meantime, the low altitude reduces drag. The Soviet Union created substantial turbojet-powered vessels during the Cold War that could actually fly over the wave tops thanks to the WIG effect. The Soviets built the Lun-class WIG boats with 8 forward-mounted turbojet engines, giving them a peak speed of 373 miles per hour in order to harness the effect and float over the surface of a lake or ocean. They were able to avoid enemy warships' radar until they were inside the Lun-6 SN-N-22 Sunburn missile's range by flying so low. The Sunburn was a 64-mile range Mach 3 sea-skimming missile that could carry a nuclear payload and only a few feet above the water's surface. They were now capable of easily sinking the largest ships, including U.S. Navy aircraft carriers. Number 2. Pablo Escobar's plane. Just off Norman's Cay, a tranquil little island in the Exuma region of the Bahamas, there's a deteriorating reminder of the paradise's brief but grim history. As distant as you can get from any major city, Norman's Cay is extremely remote. Those who make it there will find a sunken military plane from World War II that was once used to deliver Pablo Escobar's cocaine trade to the United States. In 1978, Carlos Leder, Pablo's best smuggler, displaced the locals from Norman's Cay by seizing small island territories. Soon after, he rushed them out in preparation for a full-scale seizure of the property, saying he would use it as a major location for drug runners to rest on their journey from Colombia to the U.S. The drug lord created a stronghold secured by many armed guards and surrounded by attack dogs just in a matter of months. The fortress had a 3,280-foot runway fitted with radar to increase operational efficiency as well as security. In 1980, despite the enormous effort, a Curtiss C-46 Commando landed just beyond the runway. The dual-engine transport aircraft was used by the U.S. Army forces during World War II. After coming down on a tiny sandbank, the smuggling plane was left abandoned, but not before its cargo was quickly retrieved. Depending on the tides, visitors are now able to snorkel here with little difficulty. In 1982, the United States cracked down on the area and, with the help of the Bahamian government, drove away the cartel, putting an end to Leder's activities on Norman's Cay. The first shoe was dropped when Carlos was arrested in 1987. It resulted in the downfall of the Medellin cartel and the government's total capture of the Cay. The island is no longer served by any commercial airlines, but charter flights are the only way tourists can reach it. And at number 1, a Lockheed Jetstar. A 1962 Lockheed 1329 Jetstar owned by Elvis Presley himself is being auctioned off. On December 22, 1976, Elvis paid $840,000 for it. But for the past 35 years, the plane has been left abandoned on an airfield near Roswell, New Mexico. The famous musician had 3 planes, the 8-seater Lockheed Jetstar being one of them. But he only had it for a year before passing away from a heart attack on August 16, 1977. The cabin of the airplane is still fully intact, despite sitting inactively in the desert for some time. Its vivid red velvet chairs, gold-finished hardware, marble bathroom sink, and wood cabin paneling are still appealing to potential buyers, though. A microwave, tape player, and portable television made by Kenmore will also be up for sale along with the aircraft's remaining cargo. The plane needs a trailer and will be offered as is since it has no engines, and most of the cockpit's equipment has been stripped. The aircraft, which was released in the late 1950s and manufactured into the 1970s, was one of 204 built by the Lockheed Corporation. The Lockheed Jetstar was the only plane of its type ever made by the firm and was initially just a private project targeted at the United States Air Force. Its design was intended for the business jet market but was later scrapped as a prototype. It can typically be identified by its 4 fixed engines located on the back of the fuselage. Elvis once had 2 of these planes, the second of which, appropriately named Hound Dog 2, is currently in Graceland. Rich people and celebrities were big fans of the airplane. It was originally owned by both Frank Sinatra and the former U.S. President Richard Nixon. Thanks for watching. What would you do if you found an abandoned plane in the middle of nowhere? Tell us in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye for now.